here's the pattern nobody talks about. The dogs with the most severe behavior problems, the most reactive, the most anxious, the ones that have been through multiple trainers are almost never owned by neglectful people. They're owned by dedicated people. They're owned by dedicated people. People who researched, people who cared deeply and followed the advice they were given. The advice was the problem. Not because it was malicious, because it was built on beliefs, inherited assumptions about why dogs do what they do that have never been accurate. And a false belief doesn't just fail to help. When it gets applied consistently, over weeks and months, it actively rewires a dog's nervous system. The behavior problem you're watching isn't your dog malfunctioning, it's your dog responding with complete neurological accuracy to the input it's been receiving. What you think you know is the exact thing working against you. The dominant cultural narrative about dog behavior runs on three assumptions. Dogs misbehave out of stubbornness, dominance, or spite. Those three words have shaped more owner decisions and damaged more dogs than almost any other factor in companion animal care. They frame the dog as a moral agent, making deliberate choices to challenge you. They make behavioral problems feel like personal conflicts. They are not accurate descriptions of anything happening inside a dog's brain. Dog behavior is not moral, it's mechanistic. Every behavior dog produces, including the ones that frustrate you, is a survival response generated by a threat perception system doing exactly what it evolved to do. The dog that lunges, the dog that guards, the dog that shuts down in new environments, none of these animals are being difficult. Their threat response systems are misfiring because the environmental input they've received has trained them to misfire. There is no stubbornness, there is no spite, there is only a nervous system responding to data. The timeline for how a false belief becomes a conditioned behavioral pattern is shorter than most owners expect. Dr. Alexandra Horowitz's cognitive research at Barnard College, alongside applied behavior analysis data on response reinforcement loops, maps the sequence clearly. A repeated owner behavior rooted in a false belief generates a consistent neurological response in the dog, which, within 3 to 6 weeks, begins to lock in as a conditioned pattern, not a habit. A conditioned neurological response, the same mechanism that makes phobias resistant to logic. The sequence is belief drives owner behavior. Owner behavior becomes training input. Training input generates a neurological response. That response, repeated, becomes the dog's baseline operating mode. The window to interrupt that sequence is narrow. In some cases, it's already closed by the time owners realize something is wrong. There's a specific point in this process worth identifying. It's the moment behavioral scientists call signal corruption, when a dog's learned associations have been distorted enough by inconsistent owner responses that commands stop being processed as meaningful information. Operant conditioning research is clear on this. Intermittent reinforcement of the wrong kind doesn't build resilience, it builds anxiety. The dog isn't confused when it stops responding to you. It has learned through your behavior that the environment is unpredictable. It is responding to that lesson with complete accuracy. A dog in temporary stress shows elevated body tension, flattened ears, and increased vigilance, but recovers. Appetite returns. Sleep normalizes. Interaction resumes. A dog in chronic behavioral dysregulation shows persistent displacement behaviors, appetite disruption, flattened affect, delayed response latency, and loss of play behavior. Most owners classify the second state as personality. Veterinary behavioral medicine classifies it as a clinical stress profile. The difference matters, because one is a passing state and the other is a conditioned architecture. Now the conditioning mechanism itself. Classical and operant conditioning are not things that happen when you formally train your dog. They are happening every single moment your dog is in your presence. Every reaction you produce, your tone when you're frustrated, your body tension when guests arrive, your response when the dog vocalizes, is a training input the dog's nervous system records in files. This is not a metaphor. University of Vienna research has shown that dogs read human cortisol-linked microexpressions and body tension before any overt behavioral signal occurs. Your dog's reactive episode in the parking lot didn't start when it saw the other dog. It started when it read your body tighten on the leash 15 seconds earlier. Owner anxiety scores correlate directly with dog reactivity scores in applied animal behavior research. You are not responding to dog's behavior. Your dog is largely responding to yours. Now, the 7 beliefs, each one precisely dismantled. 1. Dominance theory. The American Veterinary Society of Animal Behavior formally rejected dominance-based training frameworks in 2008. Wolfpack hierarchy research, the original source, was conducted on unrelated captive wolves under artificial stress conditions. It does not describe companion dog behavior. 2. Dogs feel guilt. Alexander Horowitz's 2009 research is definitive. What owners read as guilt is appeasement behavior. The dog is responding to your emotional state, not its memory of the behavior. 3. Punishment creates respect. It creates fear. Measurably elevated cortisol, long-term avoidance responses, and increased reactivity are the documented outcomes of punishment-based correction. 4. A well-exercised dog is a calm dog. Physical exercise without mental predictability produces a physically fit, neurologically dysregulated animal. 5. The dog knows it's wrong. The dog knows you're upset. Those are not the same thing. 6. Affection fixes anxiety. Unstructured reassurance during a threat response confirms the threat. The nervous system doesn't process your intention, it processes the pattern. 7. Some dogs are just difficult. Chronic behavioral problems are chronic environmental problems. The difficulty lives in the inputs, not the animal. Beneath all of this is a biological layer that makes false belief-based training not just ineffective, but self-defeating. Cortisol floods triggered by threat-based training methods physically impair the hippocampus, the brain structure responsible for encoding new learning. A dog in a chronic stress state has measurably reduced capacity for operant conditioning. You cannot successfully train a dog that is physiologically unable to process new information. Every session run in that state adds one more data point confirming that the environment is threatening. The recalibration requires 3 shifts. Replace belief-driven reactions with observation-driven responses. Watch the dog's body before assigning meaning to its behavior. Establish environmental predictability before asking for behavioral compliance. A nervous system cannot stabilize in a chaotic sensory environment. And interrupt the conditioning loop at the right point. Identify the trigger chain and introduce a neutral disruption before the stress threshold, not after it. After is too late. The data has already been recorded. Your dog is not the problem. Your dog has never been the problem. The problem has been the belief system you carried into the relationship, unchallenged, because everyone around you held the same beliefs and called them common sense. The dog waiting for you on the other side of this isn't a different dog. It's the same animal, finally receiving input its nervous system can actually use. Neuroplasticity research confirms that conditioned responses can and do rewire when the environmental input changes consistently over time. Your dog's capacity for change is intact. It has been waiting for you to update your operating system. Which of the 7 beliefs were you running before this video? Drop the number in the comments. If you know someone whose dog has always been difficult, send them this, not as advice, as information. The next video goes deeper into what behavior recalibration actually looks like in practice and what the timeline for real change looks like. Subscribe if that's the content you want.